Hi everyone, how's it going? Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to 3D print Erso's A180 blaster from Rogue One. Let's jump right into it. So I found these models on Colts 3D for about $10, made by someone named 3D Picasso. I have the link for these in the description. I really like this model because, for one, it's made of 4 interlocking pieces: the barrel, the trigger, the handle, and the body, and has 3 pegs going throughout it to kind of hold it all together. As well, I also like the handle. It's more kind of blocky than other 3D models of this blaster, which have a more rounded handle, and I like the more blocky handle myself. This was 3D printed on my CR10S Pro V2 at 0.2mm layer height and 20% infill, so between the pegs and the infill it's very strong. Here you can just see how I oriented all my pieces, the barrel standing straight up, and I printed them all at once. It only took about a day and 8.5 hours, and it used roughly a quarter of a roll of filament. Here's the finished print, and you can see it's looking pretty good. I think that the layer quality turned out very good despite only being 0.2mm. Here I'm just examining all the pieces, making sure they all look good. You can see I have the grip with the peg in it. I will say that all the pegs did not fit in very well. I had to do some pretty aggressive power sanding to get them all to fit in, especially the longer, slimmer one. Other than that, all these pieces look really nice. There is a lot of stair stepping on pieces, especially the blaster, or barrel, and the trigger, and even the top of the grip have a lot. You can see here I have the trigger and the barrel connected. I don't know why I didn't disconnect them to show this to you, but there's what it looks like connected. It just kind of slides on right at this connection point. There's a little hole in here, and it just kind of fits together and looks really pretty. Here's my first test fit. I just wanted to test it out of my hand. Looking at it, I think I might have scaled it a bit too big. This was at 100%, but I think a 95 or maybe even 90% would have fit my hand better. Kind of see myself or my hand stretching to get across it. And I do have kid hands though. I'm making this for an adult, so maybe it'll fit them better. Real quick, I'd like to apologize. I skipped over a whole lot of information. I went from test fit to almost ready to sand or paint, and I'm really sorry about that. I don't know why I didn't get more video of it, but I'll just explain what I did. I just used various coats of filler and sandwell primer by Duplicolor. Just going over this a few times just to fill in some gaps and see what else I need to sand myself. I used a bit of Bondo and CA super glue in the gaps, especially between the handle. Like I said, the peg didn't fit quite right, even with the sanding, so there was a bit of a gap where I couldn't get it to push in all the way. Other than that, I did a lot of filling up here, and I think in the long term I sanded a bit too much away. But all you really have to do is just keep going up the grits from a low grit, I'd say 200, 300, up to I'd say 800, and then another coat of another coat of primer to show you anything you need to still work on. Just keep doing that until it looks really good. When it comes to this, you really don't want to skimp out on the sanding, because it'll really affect it in the long term, especially with metallic colors like this. You can see I actually didn't do that great on the barrel. I didn't do quite enough higher grit sandpaper, so the layer lines are gone, but there's some low grit sandpaper lines and just other parts that I think this thing would have been better if I spent more time on it. I am still super happy with it though. Anyway, just keep doing that over and over until it looks really good, and then it'll be ready to paint. In this video here, I'm almost ready to paint, but I need a bit more high grit, maybe even wet sanding, to get it to the high gloss finish I want. Now real quick, I want to go over a mistake I made when making this. I saw a Galactic Armor video where he used Plastidip, which is a spray-on rubber often used for sealing foam props. He used it on a helmet so I could get a cool texture. I was out of sandable primer and filler primer, so I thought maybe that could work for this. It did not. Do not use Plastidip until they're ready to paint. And even if you do, then I used Plastidip on this, and I didn't even do a very thick layer, so I couldn't peel it off. I had to use a Goo Gone to try to make it still liquidy. It was really annoying. I totally messed up. I don't know why I thought that would work. Don't do that. Don't make my mistakes. Anyway, I am now ready to paint. I've removed the Plastidip and cleaned everything up. So I need to test what paints I need to use. You can see in the final product there's a silver and a kind of gunmetal paint. So I do the spoon paint test to find out what would be the best two paints and what the clear coat would go well with. The three paints I tested were Duplicolor Wheel Coating Graphite, Duplicolor Silver Wheel Coating, and Montana Silver Chrome. And I used a 1K clear coat on all of them on the spoons. I ended up going with the silver and the graphite Duplicolor. I think that the Montana was good, but didn't go quite as well with the 1K clear. My first coat of paint is the silver. I think I do about 4 coats of this to get a good, nice finish on it. Once I'm done with that, I let it sit for about a day and then mask off all the parts that remain silver, which is most of this. I did almost all of the barrel except for this little ring here, and then this whole thing is silver, the rest is graphite. I also did one small detail here. I masked off this center thing. I don't know if that's totally canon, but I liked how it looked, and I thought it could use a bit more contrast. The silver looks really pretty. I'm really happy with it, and I think it's going to go really well with the graphite. All I used was a classic skinny blue Scotch painter's tape and a Tamiya very thin 6mm masking tape used for very fine details. I just used that around the edges mostly. You want to do big paint or even paper if it's on a big thing, and then smaller tape around the edges. Once I was ready for the next paint, I took it out, punched a little hole in here, and painted all the rest of the pieces. Finally, I did the last 3 coats of graphite. I did that on all the unmasked parts, and I really like how this one turned out. I think it's the prettiest paint I have. It has like a very deep, that shiny, almost mirror finish, especially with the clear coat on it. Here I just am removing the masking tape, always a super satisfying thing, and it was really fun to do. Finally, here's how it looks without the masking tape, but before weathering. I think it looks really good. I think the silver and the graphite really complement each other, and I'm super happy with it. Finally, I'm ready for some clear coats. Like I said earlier, I'm using Duplicolor 1K Extreme Gloss Clear Coat. Because I'm using Duplicolor for the silver and the graphite, I know that it's going to go well together. Usually paints in the same family always do. I still did testing just in case, but yeah. I didn't want to obscure any of that, but I found that a thick, heavy-duty Hawk glue stick will actually fit right in the barrel, and so I can just heat up the end, push it in there, and then have a little place to hold it that won't cover up any of the blaster. finally, here it is, fully clear coated. I did 4 coats, waiting about 15 minutes between them. All I have to do next is weathering. I'm super happy with it, especially the graphite. I think it just really shines. It brought it to a practically mirror finish, which is just awesome. I'm so glad. The 2 colors really look good together, but it's too shiny. It needs to do some weathering. So I'm gonna... Alright, now I'm gonna weather this to make it look more used. It's a pretty simple process. The same thing I used in my last video. I used 2 high flow acrylics, a sepia to represent dirt and other things, and a carbon black to represent grime, or maybe in the case of a blaster, even oil. I use a lot more grime because I feel like that would accumulate more on a blaster. And all you have to do is mix those 2 together with some water, and then use a fine paintbrush, wipe it all over the prop, and wipe it down. This will leave it all in the crevices. Depending on how weathered you want it to be, you can just kind of dab it off to leave more, or completely wipe it off, or not do this at all. It's really up to you. I thought that it needed it though, and so I tried to wipe it off, leaving a reasonable amount. I also wanted to give it some discoloration, so I used a bit more brown in the barrel especially. I think in the lighter parts it really adds to it. I did 2 coats of this, a bottom coat with more brown and less black, and then a top coat with vice versa, more black and less brown. Alright, here's the blaster all weathered. It looks really good. Now all I need is to get some good closing shots. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And it'd be awesome if you could like, comment, and subscribe. I will be posting a new video shortly. And happy holidays.